Welcome, friends. Welcome, everyone, to a journey through history, examining fascinating, enduring questions. And the question is, why is it seemingly impossible to invade India? For centuries, empires from east and west have cast their ambitious gaze upon the subcontinent, only to find their grand designs crumble. Today, we will dwell into the formidable reasons behind this particular historical truth or phenomena. So, let us put things in perspective. Firstly, you know, uh, we have to understand the context also. What we call India. Now, India is a place, it's a land. Sometimes it is also known as a subcontinent. For a reason, there is a reason to call it a subcontinent. It's a land which is sort of locked between two major river systems in the world. These put together could be the largest water systems of the world. This major systems is on the western side of India is the Indus River and the tributaries of Indus River and its valley, and on the eastern side is the Brahmaputra, very large river, very mighty, and its tributary, even Ganga, goes into Brahmaputra. Now this is very ancient, and this river system on both sides protect India or sort of define the subcontinent, and therefore India is properly defined. In fact, I will tell you more details about it. However, let's look at the political scenario first to begin with. The politics as we know it today, or the democracy as we know it today, even if we take the modern history, then people say, especially people in the West, say that the democracy was started first in ancient Greece. However, this point is debatable. Even today, at the grassroots level, at the village level, there has been a practice of democracy since a time immemorial in India. Okay, let's not debate on this point. Let's say the Greece as a country started democracy. That means they used to vote and select their leaders. However, after Greece, what happened? The Romans came. The democracy was thrown out. All right. After Romans, the Christians came, and after Christians, the uh, Islam came. And so, whenever these changes happened, there was a break in whatever they were doing. So, all right, Greece started the democracy. Let's go with that point. However, it did not continue. There was a break, and something else happened. And then that continued for about 1,000 years. Then something else happened. Islam came. Then it continued for about 800, 900 years, and then the Crusaders came. They brought the Christianity back, and so on and so forth. So today we are living in an era where there was nothing continuous. There were breaks in between. However, if you look at India as a region, people today, whichever religion they belong to, they can say that our ancestors have been around for at least 10,000 years. You know, this continuity is what defines India as a country. I wanted to bring this point, very, very important point, before actually we start dwelling down into the aspect of why it is difficult to invade and retain as a conquest this particular region. So there is no break at all. I mean, if you look at the Indian subcontinent, it is the oldest surviving civilization. Now, if you compare with another large civilization, which is China, but you see, even the Chinese had a break when the Mongols attacked and kind of, removed their historical resonance from China. And today, where is China? China is communist. They don't have any, any lineage. I mean, they talk about lineage, that they had lineage in Tibet and they had lineage in other parts of the world, but realistically there was a break. Whereas in India, this has not happened. They have continued to endure and continue to live in this land for centuries, for generations. Now you will ask the question that India was invaded and colonized. However, it was a matter of time that sometimes 50 years, sometimes 100 years, sometimes 200 years, these invaders were eventually thrown out. The people who actually invaded and colonized India, because India was definitely a prized possession for anyone, they were eventually thrown out from the country, and whoever remained of those conquerors, they had to assimilate within India, and therefore today Indians are Indians, and they also, whoever came from outside. For example, Greeks came along with Alexander. Where are the Greeks today? They are completely assimilated within Indian population, and so on and so forth. So I think this is something that we need to put in context before we start our journey to understand why India as a subcontinent or as a region is very difficult to invade and also conquer. All right. Now let's look at the outskirts also. I mean, before we get into the depth of the things, let's look at the outskirts. I mean, the Russians tried to invade Afghanistan, they failed. Then the Americans tried for decades and they failed. Both of them failed. Then Pakistani tried, they failed within a year. So, it's a feature of the subcontinent that it is, you can invade, but it's very difficult to keep the invasion alive, keep the things alive, and keep the, territory together. All right. So after having this point, let's start and understand in depth why it is absolutely a beast of a problem to not only invade India, conquer, and then rule this place for an outsider. Let us start with the most obvious and perhaps the most imposing barrier, which is the India's geography. Please look at India. Please, I mean, if you are a foreigner or an Indian, both, or people of the world, please look at map of the India. To the north, you have the Himalayas, the world's highest mountain range, a natural fortress that stretches for thousands of kilometers. We have passes. There are several passes also. Passes like Khyber Pass exist, yes, but they are quite narrow, treacherous, and easily defendable. And you can very easily, defenders can create choke points in Khyber Pass. They don't allow for the movement of massive armies with ease. So from the military perspective, attempting to cross the Himalayas with substantial force is a logistical nightmare. Supplying troops, moving artillery, dealing with altitude sickness, and the sheer physical exhaustion, it is almost insurmountable before you even face an enemy. And what about the other side? To the west, the arid Thar desert, equally unforgiving. To the east, dense jungles and difficult terrain towards the Southeast Asia. And the vast coastline, while seemingly open, presents its own challenges for pre-modern naval invasions and sustained land operations from the sea. Even if an invading force managed to breach the initial geographical barrier, they would immediately face another immense hurdle: the sheer scale of India and the logistical nightmare it presents. Consider the supply lines. Invading armies, especially in the ancient and medieval times, relied heavily on the local resources and extended supply chain. India is vast. Marching an army from, say, Persia or Central Asia deep into the subcontinent meant supply lines stretching for thousands of kilometers and vulnerable to raids, disease, and various elements like monsoons, the Great Indian Summer, etc., which people are not used to. Alexander the Great, for instance, eventually had his troop mutiny. It wasn't just about facing the powerful Indian kingdoms. It was about exhaustion, the endless marching, the unfamiliar climate, and the sheer difficulty of maintaining morale and supplies so far away from home, so far away from their nearest stronghold. And then there is a climate itself. Extreme heat, monsoon rain that turn rivers into raging torrent and roads into mud pits. These are not minor inconveniences. They are strategic obstacles that can decimate any army through disease, logistical disruptions, and sheer iteration. Beyond the physical challenge, India presents a unique political landscape that frustrates conquerors, a decentralized power structure with countless resilient layers of governance. Unlike, say, a unified empire with a single capital to capture, India historically comprised of numerous independent or semi-independent kingdoms. Conquering one didn't mean conquering all. You might defeat, Magadha Empire, but then you will face Mauryas, or Guptas, or Cholas, or Rajputs, or even Marathas. Even during the period of large empires like the Mauryan or Mughal, local autonomy often remained strong. This meant that even if a central authority was overthrown, local resistance would flare up, making true and lasting control incredibly difficult. This decentralization also meant a constant wellspring of fresh troops and new tactics. An invading army might be exhausted after one major campaign, only to find a new, equally determined enemy awaiting them from a different region. It was never-ending cycle of conflict. Think of the British, for example. While they eventually established control, it took them centuries, involved numerous wars, and even then, their hold was often precarious, marked by rebellions and continuous effort to pacify and administer the vast territory. But the challenges weren't just geographical or political. India's deep rooted culture and social fabric also played a crucial role in repelling invaders. India's diverse cultures, language, and religions were sometimes a source of internal conflict. However, fostered a strong sense of local identity and a fierce desire to preserve their way of life against foreign imposition. Religious belief, particularly the emphasis on dharma and protecting one's land and people, often galvanized the resistance. We see this time and again in historical accounts. Local population rising up, sometimes against overwhelming odds, to defend their traditions and temples. Guerrilla warfare was also a recurring feature. The local knowledge of the terrain combined with popular support allowed smaller mobile forces to harass and wear down much larger, conventionally superior invading armies. Shivaji and the Marathas are a prime example of this strategy effectiveness against the Mughals. Even when conquerors established their rule, they often found themselves absorbed into Indian culture's landscape rather than truly transforming it. Many foreign rulers adapted Indian customs, patronized local arts, and even intermarried, becoming one more Indianized entity than strictly ruling as a foreign conquerors. Indian armies are diverse and often formidable. 1.5 million active soldiers today, 3.5 million paramilitary forces, and nearly 3 million soldiers in reserve. Almost 100 million fighting force today exist in India, making it one of the largest military and potent force. And also I like to tell you that Indian army, the modern army, is one of the most prepared army in the world, battle hardened and proven. They prepare, they strategize, they allocate resources. And if you look at the Indian army, they don't basically go tom-tom about, hey, I've got such a big aircraft carrier, or I've got so many big, number of aircraft. They look at army leaders, they look at their terrain, their resources, and deploy them very effectively. Recent 3-day war with Pakistan is a classic example of this. The tactical acumen of Indian commanders should not be underestimated. They have understood their terrain, exploited logistical weaknesses of invaders, and often engaged in protracted warfare designed to exhaust and demoralize the enemy. Historically, India was never a walkover. Even major invasion faced fierce, organized, and often innovative resistance, forcing the invaders to commit immense resources and suffer heavy casualties. This is perhaps the most subtle yet profound reason. Unlike regions that might adapt the language, religion, or customs of their conquerors, wholesale India's pre-existing civilizations were so robust and self-sufficient that even often absorbed the invaders into themselves. The Huns, the Sakas, the Greeks, many of these groups eventually blended into the Indian populace, losing their distinct foreign identity over generations. They became part of the diverse tapestry of India. This made truly lasting and culturally dominant foreign ruler almost impossible. The conquerors often found themselves becoming the conquered in a cultural sense, losing their original ties and eventually becoming part of Indian narrative. The British perhaps came closest to establishing truly foreign and lasting presence, but even their rule was relatively short in the grand sweep of Indian history, and ultimately India's deep-seated cultural identity endured and eventually led to independence. So, to summarize, why is it impossible to invade India? It is a confluence of factors. Number one, imposing geographical barriers. Number two, tyranny of distance, insurmountable logistical challenges. Number three, a decentralized political landscape fostering endless resistance. Number four, resilient and vibrant socio-culture fabric. Number five, military innovation and willingness to fight. And remarkably, the ability of Indian civilization to absorb and assimilate foreign elements. India, with its empire-busting legacy, stand as a testament to the enduring power of geography, culture, and the spirit of its people. It is a land that has repeatedly proven that while armies may march in, true conquest and lasting dominion are entirely different and ultimately impossible proposition. So, thank you for joining me on this fascinating historical exploration. This is a very interesting subject. If you have any thoughts or comments, I look forward to receiving them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again in the next one, my friends.